What if one ordinary moment, your daily commute, a routine so mundane it's practically muscle memory, turned into chaos? On December 21st, 1994, a New York City subway car was rocked by a homemade bomb. It was an attack that left dozens injured, a city shaken, and a mystery that's never been solved. But the story of what happened that day still has a lingering question. Why? To understand the impact of what happened that morning, you first have to picture New York City in 1994. For decades, it had been synonymous with crime, grit, and a kind of no-nonsense survival mentality. But by the mid-90s, things were starting to change. Mayor Rudy Giuliani's crackdown on crime was making headlines, Times Square was being cleaned up, and the city was slowly shedding its dark reputation. But one part of New York life still held on to that edge: the subway. The subway in the 90s was, well, complicated. It was the heartbeat of the city, moving millions of people every day. But it was also a place where anything could happen. And on December 21st, 1994, something did. It was a typical morning rush hour. The number 4 train on the Lexington Avenue line was packed with commuters, people just counting down the stops until their destination. But as the train approached Lower Manhattan, something happened that no one was prepared for. In one of the cars, a bag sat abandoned, seemingly just another piece of forgotten luggage. But inside that bag was a homemade bomb, and when it detonated, the car erupted into chaos. The blast sent a shockwave through the train, filling the air with smoke and shrapnel. Passengers were thrown to the floor. Some scrambled to help the injured as confusion turned into panic. Miraculously, no one died that day, but dozens of people were hurt, some with life-altering injuries. As first responders worked to evacuate the train and treat the injured, investigators descended on the scene. But there was one big question lingering. Who would do this? The bomb was crude but effective. Experts determined it had been built by an amateur. Not a sophisticated device, but still deadly. Investigators concluded that it was likely the work of a lone actor. The FBI and NYPD poured resources into the case. Surveillance footage, witness statements, forensic analysis, it all became part of a massive effort to catch whoever was responsible. But this was 1994, and the tools the investigators had back then weren't the same as what they have today. There were no cell phone cameras and no social media trails to follow. And despite their best efforts, the case went cold. For New Yorkers, this attack felt personal. The subway is more than just a transportation system. It's part of the city's identity. Every New Yorker has a subway story, whether it's about running into an old friend or witnessing something wild at 2 a.m. But this particular story left people scared. In the weeks that followed the bombing, ridership on the number 4 line plummeted. Police increased patrol in the subway system, and random bag checks became a common sight. For a city still recovering from the 1993 World Trade Center bombing just a year earlier, this was another painful reminder that nowhere, even underground, felt completely safe. 30 years later, the subway bombing remains unsolved. The person, or people, behind it were never caught, but the impact of that day lingers, not just for the survivors, but for the city as a whole. For many, it's a reminder how fragile our sense of normalcy can be. One moment, you're just another face in the crowd. The next, everything changes. So what do you think? Was the attack a personal grudge, a political statement, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story interesting, make sure you like this video, share it, and be sure to subscribe. And I'll continue to provide stories that shaped our world 30 years ago.